I can feel it deep in my gut, a certainty I don't want to admit. Mia, the girl I grew up with, the girl who was supposed to be my future, is slipping away from me. We're next-door neighbors. We've been each other's shadow since we were kids. Her family has 2 daughters, Chloe, the older one who's 3 years ahead of us, and Mia, who's my age. Our parents aren't just neighbors, they're coworkers at the same firm. And at this point their friendship feels older than our entire existence. Because of that, Chloe, Mia, and I basically lived in each other's pockets growing up. We ate together, walked to school together. Every memory I have, they're both in it. That routine only changed when Chloe left for college on the East Coast. The soft, half-formed crush I once had on her faded into a quiet kind of longing that didn't hurt anymore. And when it was just Mia and me left, something shifted. We were 16, awkward, emotional, dramatic 16, when everything feels like the beginning or end of your entire life. And I fell for her. Not a little crush, not a passing spark, hard. Maybe it was the lifetime of shared history. Maybe it was how naturally beautiful she was. Maybe it was because everything she was lined up perfectly with everything I found attractive. I don't know. All I knew was that she was the only girl I could see. From the start of junior year, I wanted her to be my girlfriend more than anything. But Mia was this strange mix, half romantic dreamer, half pragmatic realist. She would give me these tiny hints that she liked me too, but always followed it with, "We're too young. We can't get serious yet." One ridiculously sunny afternoon, I was driving her to the library in my beat-up old sedan. We found a table right under an AC vent, and the cool air kept blowing strands of her hair across her face. She looked so peaceful, so impossibly perfect, that I just stared. And then, without warning, the words I'd been holding in tumbled out. "Mia, will you be my girlfriend?" The moment I said it, regret hit me like a punch. I froze. I glanced around, praying no one had heard. Thankfully, we were tucked away in a secluded corner. When I finally looked back, Mia was staring at me, eyes wide, shocked. My heart was trying to break out of my chest. I couldn't say a single word. I just waited. "We're still so young," she said first. Those words felt like someone dumping ice water over my entire body. She's going to say no, I thought. My mouth tasted bitter. I ducked my head, already preparing to laugh it off as a stupid joke. But then she spoke again, and I lifted my eyes. "If you ask me again after graduation on the 50-yard line in front of the whole school," she paused, then stuck her tongue out playfully, "I might just say yes." The afternoon sun lit her face, catching the blush on her cheeks and the deep red blooming across her ears. A wave of pure joy slammed into me. I shot up from my chair. If we weren't in a silent library, I swear I would have screamed. "Deal," I managed to say, my voice shaking with everything I felt. "I'll give you the most epic proposal this school has ever seen." We were 17, an age where you actually believe love is some kind of unbreakable fairy tale. After that day, something unspoken clicked between us. We drove to school together, came home together, shared milk teas, did homework side by side. Everything felt deeper, more real, like we were finally stepping into the relationship we'd always been heading toward. And I truly believed that being each other's first love meant we'd be walking side by side forever. But during the second half of senior year, that perfect picture began to smudge. It started with a sophomore named Josh. He saw Mia once and was immediately obsessed. Since he knew I was in the picture, he couldn't make any direct moves. So he engineered accidental encounters, being on our route to school, hanging around our classroom during passing periods, bumping into us on the way home. Little gifts, constant compliments, predictable but effective. And Mia, she'd always been a sucker for big gestures. After all, she was the one who wanted me to ask her out publicly on the 50-yard line. Meanwhile, I was never the smooth talker type. I couldn't flatter her the way he did. I didn't have his shameless persistence. But I had one strength. I knew when to pull back before I destroyed myself. I knew Mia better than anyone. And the moment I saw her beginning to waver, I started pulling my feelings back, redirecting all that emotional energy into studying. My dad always said, If you feel insecure next to the person you like, work on yourself. Don't spiral. Spiraling just makes them lose respect for you. Maybe you saw this coming long before I did. Soon, Mia started letting Josh join us for lunch. She still sat next to me, but her laughter, her entire attention, belonged to him. Watching her light up at his jokes was like taking a knife to the chest over and over until the pain became familiar. It wasn't like I never confronted her. I did. I told her she was getting too close to him. But she waved it off. He's just a sophomore, Leo. I'm not going to fall for him. I had no words. You already have, I wanted to say. My heart hurt, but I forced myself into a calm numbness. Because I realized if something pure was already getting tainted, maybe it was time to let it go. So I shut out everything and focused on preparing for the SATs and college applications. My conversations with Mia shrank until they were nothing. She didn't even notice. Even in class, though we sat next to each other, she spent every break running out to the hallway, texting Josh, calling Josh, laughing with Josh. Meanwhile, I buried myself in prep books. Mia and Chloe were similar in one way. They were naturally smart. Mia could coast through classes with me and still beat my scores by a mile. If I wanted to get into Northgate University, where Chloe was, I had to work twice as hard. My desk was stacked with practice tests. My pens kept running out of ink. I was thinking about calculus during dinner. Sometimes, when I got tired, I'd look out the window at her room. She used to sit at her desk too, facing me. Back then, whenever I looked up, she'd somehow sense it. She'd look up too, smile, make a goofy face, something small that made my whole night better. But now her chair was empty. She was probably texting Josh. Even though I decided to move on, there was this sour knot in my stomach every time I thought about it. I'd force my mind back to my parents, the people who never let me down. They worked themselves to exhaustion but still came home, made dinner, made sure I had a hot meal every night. Whenever I tried to help with dishes, my mom would push me back toward my room. Your only job is to study. To give me an extra edge, my dad spent a fortune, 2 months' salary, on an online tutor for my weakest subjects. I overheard them whispering about it one night. After that, I returned to my desk and refused to look out the window again. As application deadlines approached, Mia complained from the passenger seat of my car. You've been acting weird lately. I'm just tired, I said. It's crunch time. I don't have energy for anything else. She scoffed. You're not seriously still trying for Northgate, right? My sister barely made it, and she's way smarter than you. Let it go. We should just aim for state school. I looked in the rearview mirror and caught the expression in her eyes. Pity. Borderline contempt. She was looking down on me. It's just a goal, I said flatly. I didn't bother arguing. My practice scores were still 200 points below average for Northgate. She wasn't wrong. It was a long shot. She must have realized she'd gone too far because she started to backtrack. But that's when Josh pulled up beside us on his bike. Her attention snapped to him like a magnet. They joked and laughed out the window while I drove in silence. She sat in my car, but she was with him. When Josh asked if she wanted a ride on his bike, she actually hesitated. She hesitated. The week before applications were due, Josh approached her after school. Mia, he said, using her full name like he owned it. You'll be gone at college soon. Let me take you to and from school for this last week. Mia once told me no guy besides me or her dad could ever call her by her full first name. But she didn't even notice. She just looked at me, conflicted. It's fine, I said, without looking up from my book. Go with him. It'll save me gas and give me more time to study. She hesitated one more second and then agreed. For the entire week, she rode on the back of his bike. I started leaving for school a few minutes earlier each day just to avoid seeing them. The first morning, Mia stormed into class and glared at me. I looked at her once, then went back to my studies. We barely spoke all week. At lunch, she sat with Josh. I kept brushing my friends off whenever they asked what was going on. I'd just tell them that Mia and I were only neighbors. With all the noise cleared from my mind, I finally focused completely on my college applications. When the deadline came, my parents must have checked my backpack 10 times, my laptop, my login info, everything. My heart was full of nothing but gratitude for them. You can do this, I told myself as I walked into the computer lab. Surprisingly, I felt calm while filling out the forms and attaching my essays. There was something satisfying, almost peaceful, about the finality of it. After 3 intense hours of submitting everything, my parents didn't bombard me with questions or ask if it was hard. They just pulled me into a huge hug and immediately started talking about where we should go to celebrate. I just smiled, exhausted, and said I wanted to sleep and relax for a few days. My dad clapped my shoulder, and my mom rushed me into the car. Back home, I crashed and slept until my body woke up naturally. For the first time in a year, I felt completely refreshed. The tension in me had finally dissolved. I lay there for a long time, stretching, with zero desire to get up. Eventually, around noon, I rolled out of bed when I heard voices in the living room. Mia's parents were over, planning a joint family vacation with mine. When they saw me, they lit up and asked why I hadn't been over to see Mia lately. I smiled and said studying had been more important, but now that the applications were done, I'd have more time. Mia's mom pulled me down to sit beside her, her eyes crinkling into a warm smile. She asked where I wanted to go. I thought about it and said maybe a trip to the national parks out west, like Uzite. Her smile grew even bigger. She exchanged a glance with her husband and said Mia had suggested the exact same thing. And just like that, the plan was set. Both families would go to USEED for a week. Chloe would be home in a couple of days, and we could all go together. It had been ages since we'd done something as a group. 2 days later, Chloe came back, gentle, warm, and exactly how I remembered. The first thing she did was hand me a small box. Inside was a limited edition action figure I'd wanted forever. I set it down carefully. Then, without thinking, hugged her in a burst of excitement. Realizing what I'd done, I quickly let go, just in time to see Mia watching us with a sour expression. "It's okay, Leo," Chloe teased softly. "It's not like you haven't hugged me before." Her words made my face warm. Looking at her fair, gentle face, my heart flipped a little. When we set off for the trip, both families drove in separate cars. Mia didn't come over to ride with me like she always used to. My mom noticed our car only had 3 people and jokingly called out for one of the girls to join us to liven things up. To my surprise, Chloe started walking toward our car. The moment she did, Mia suddenly jumped out of her own car and ran to ours too. So I ended up in the back seat, squeezed between the 2 sisters. But the atmosphere was anything but peaceful. I found myself naturally turning toward Chloe, asking about college life. She answered everything with her usual gentle warmth, sharing funny stories and interesting moments. We talked and laughed like no time had passed at all. Our easy connection clearly irritated Mia, but honestly, no one was paying attention to her. I was too absorbed in talking to Chloe, the big sister who had always looked out for me. Even months apart hadn't created the slightest distance between us. The trip was amazing for everyone except Mia. She stayed in a bad mood the entire time. Her mom scolded her more than once, but it didn't help. The only time her expression changed was when her phone buzzed. She'd wander off to a corner, smiling and texting for hours. Chloe watched her quietly, thoughtful, then glanced at me with a strange look, but I was too busy admiring the valley views to notice. The week flew by. On the drive home, I sat there grinning at a picture on my phone, a photo of Chloe and me on a boat in one of the lakes. I was pointing excitedly at something in the distance, and she was looking at me with a soft, gentle smile. The affection in her eyes was unmistakable. The picture radiated effortless closeness. We had plenty of photos with our families, only a few with Chloe, and just one with Mia, a candid her mom had taken. In it, Mia looked distant, eyes glued to her phone. I was turned toward Chloe, and even though Mia and I were only a foot apart, it felt like we were in completely different worlds. Later, when Mia saw that photo, she froze. She looked at me with a flicker of guilt, but I was too busy admiring the pictures on my phone to care. After that, Mia started coming over constantly. She'd hang out at my place or invite me over for dinner. I didn't refuse, but I kept it polite, distant. I'd go. I'd be civil. But the easy closeness we'd once had was gone. We were just friends. Mia's mood soured even though she tried hard to act cheerful. A few days passed. On the morning we had to go to school to officially accept our college offers, Mia was waiting at my door, looking conflicted. "Let's go," I said, ignoring her expression and patting the passenger seat. "Leo, are you going to keep your promise?" The sun was bright, the breeze light. Halfway to school, Mia suddenly wrapped her arms around my waist from the passenger seat, her voice thick with emotion. She held on so tightly it made driving difficult. I told her to let go, but she clung even harder. So I pulled over. "We made a deal. You can't go back on your word." Her eyes were red around the edges, hair wind-tousled, fragile, almost heartbreakingly so. I looked at this girl I'd known my entire life. For a moment, just a moment, I felt the old impulse to give in, to be reckless again. She had been my entire youth. "Okay," I finally said, voice low after a long internal battle. When her expression turned pleading, I gave her one last chance in my heart. If she agreed to be my girlfriend, if she promised to keep her distance from other guys, maybe we could still make it work. At school, my guidance counselor spotted me immediately and pulled me aside, excited. Mia's phone rang, and since graduation was over, no one cared. She glanced at the screen, muttered something about needing the restroom, and hurried off. My counselor was practically shouting my final SAT scores, over 200 points higher than my last practice test. My classmates stared in shock. Getting into Northgate wasn't a dream anymore, it was guaranteed. I submitted my acceptance. But Mia still hadn't come back. I called her noisy background, her voice rushed. She said she was on the football field and hung up. With nothing else to do, I grabbed her acceptance form and went to find her. A huge crowd was gathered in the middle of the field. Mia was standing at the center of it all. Josh stood in front of her, holding a massive bouquet. A public confession. Mia bit her lip, looking torn, not giving him an answer. I stood there for a moment, then reached into my pocket. The gift I'd bought ages ago, a delicate silver necklace. She had once pointed at it, saying she loved it but couldn't afford it. Back then, she was my whole world. I'd never forgotten. I walked forward, straight past Josh. "Mia, I really like you. Will you be my girlfriend?" I opened the box and held it out. Josh's face darkened. Then he whispered something to her. I couldn't hear it, but Mia's expression changed. Her eyes darted toward a girl standing nearby, and she reached out. She took the flowers from Josh. She didn't say a word, but she didn't have to. I let out a dry laugh. "Well, Mia, I kept my promise." I tossed the necklace box onto the grass, shoved her acceptance form into her hand, and walked away without looking back. I could feel the eyes on me, pity, disdain, disgust. I felt nothing. I had honored my word. She had thrown away her last chance. From now on, we were just neighbors. For someone like me, who valued emotional loyalty above everything, I had already bent my own rules for her. This erased whatever remained. Mia didn't follow me back. I didn't return to the gym. I drove straight home. "Leo, why did some other boy drop Mia off?" my mom asked the moment I stepped inside. "Were you being difficult again?" I explained that Mia had something to take care of, so I came home first. My mom gave me a thoughtful look, sighed, and let it go. Not long after, Mia showed up in my room, watching me carefully. Leo, Josh's sister, was there. I didn't want him to feel embarrassed. That's the only reason I did it. Don't be mad, okay? I almost laughed at how thin the explanation was. She moved closer, grabbing my arm, whining softly. "Oh, come on, Leo. I know I messed up. It was just this once. I promise it'll never happen again. Okay? Just ask me one more time. I'll say yes, I swear." Her soft, pleading tone made my skin crawl. The thought that she probably used that same voice with Josh made my irritation spike. My expression must have shifted because she stared at me in disbelief. Then my mom walked in. Mia instantly shut her mouth. My mom, cheerful as ever, invited Mia to stay for dinner. "Mom, Mia has plans later," I said quietly. She couldn't stay. I cut in before Mia could say yes. The look on her face was painfully obvious, but with my mom standing right there, she could only force a smile, say a reluctant goodbye, and head home. It didn't take long before my phone started blowing up with messages from her. Long, rambling paragraphs I had no energy or desire to read. They were just excuses about what happened, excuses about our childhood bond, excuses about how she was just trying to spare Josh's feelings. I wrote her one sentence. Did you ever stop to think that maybe I would be embarrassed? Then I put my phone down and didn't open another message from her. That entire summer, I worked a job at a mall a few towns over. It was a rotating shift schedule. The few times Mia came by, I conveniently happened to be at work. We didn't see each other a single time that whole summer. I didn't answer her calls. I didn't respond to her texts. The first time we finally saw each other again was after I'd gotten my first real paycheck. I took Chloe out to celebrate. Mia tagged along nervous, excited, almost overly eager. She kept trying to make conversation, and while I wasn't rude, my replies were short and emotionless. Her phone buzzed nonstop, but she ignored every notification. With Chloe there, she couldn't bring up what had happened. She just kept shooting me guilty glances. Chloe, meanwhile, seemed completely unaware of the tension. Her focus was on the traffic, occasionally reminding us to be careful. Then Mia's ringtone went off. She rejected the call twice. The third time, she glanced at me, saw I wasn't paying attention, and answered. Her voice was low, irritated. Whatever the person said made her expression fall instantly. She hung up, conflicted, then quickly flagged down a cab. A friend of mine just got into town. I have to go meet them, she said, hurrying off and leaving Chloe and me standing together. Chloe didn't seem bothered by Mia's sudden exit. Instead, she casually took my hand. There's too much traffic here. I'll feel better holding on. It felt like being transported 6 or 7 years back, when Chloe, who'd hit her growth spurt early, used to hold my hand on the walk home from school. Back then, it made me feel safe. Now it made my heart race. Her hand was so soft, a natural ease in the gesture, something completely different from anything I'd ever shared with Mia. I had booked a private room at a nice restaurant near the mall and ordered all of Chloe's favorite dishes. After we ate, I paid without hesitation. This place is way too expensive, Chloe muttered, frowning at the receipt. Don't come here again. If you want to eat this stuff, I can cook it for you at home. It's fine, I said with a huge grin. The whole point of getting a summer job was so I could treat you to a nice dinner. This meal meant something different. It was the first time I'd ever treated Chloe with money I earned myself. After dinner, we strolled through the mall. Chloe stopped at a counter, browsed for a while, and ended up buying a watch. When I saw the price, over $1,000, my jaw nearly hit the floor. This is an investment. It'll last for years. Unlike wasting money on one fancy meal, she teased, rolling her eyes in a way that was still ridiculously charming. I was stunned for a moment. A faint blush colored her cheeks, but she ignored it and carefully fastened the watch on my wrist before paying with a satisfied smile. As we were leaving, we ran into Mia. She was holding hands with Josh, talking to another girl, Josh's sister, whom I recognized immediately. Chloe looked at them, then at me. I felt nothing, but Chloe's brow creased. Mia, she called, walking straight toward them. The moment Mia saw us, her face drained of color. She instantly dropped Josh's hand and rushed toward us like she was terrified we might speak to him. Josh, with his arm in a sling, scowled in our direction. My friend had to leave, and I was going to find you guys when I ran into them, so I talked for a minute, Mia explained too quickly, grabbing my arm as if she could pull us away from the scene. I instinctively pulled my arm back. A flash of hurt crossed her face. Josh's sister stepped over, said a brief hello, then hurried away with her brother. Mia tried to get us to go shopping together, but Chloe and I both said we were tired. She had no choice but to come home with us. When we parted ways, Mia gestured at her phone, signaling for me to check her messages. I ignored her. As the semester approached, I headed to the Fong household with my suitcase. You too? Mia stuttered, staring at Chloe and me standing there with our luggage. I simply smiled and held up my Northgate University acceptance letter. Time to head to campus. Chloe and I are traveling together. The sight of that letter made every bit of color drain from her face. Shock turned to devastation, and then tears welled in her eyes. Leo, you promised we'd go to the same college. Sorry, I never said that. That day, you said if I asked you in front of the whole school, you'd say yes, and then we'd go to college together. Did you forget? First, I said, raising one finger, you rejected my proposal. Second, I said we'd go to college, not the same college. Since she decided to drag our private conversations into the open, I didn't hold back. Luckily, her parents weren't in the room. No, Leo, you can't do this. If you leave, what about me? Are you saying you want a long-distance relationship for 4 years? For the first time, I genuinely couldn't understand her logic. You rejected me. We're not even together. What long-distance relationship? I grabbed my suitcase, along with Chloe's, and headed for the door. Mia grabbed my arm, clutching desperately. You're joking, right? You're just taking your sister to the airport. There's no way your grades were good enough for Northgate. She was searching for any excuse, anything that made this feel less real. Outside, my dad pulled up and honked. I've never lied to you, I said, and walked out with my suitcase. I didn't look at Mia again. Chloe patted her sister's shoulder, sighed, and followed me to the car. Mia just stood on the porch, frozen, watching as we drove away until we disappeared. Move-in season traffic was brutal. My phone buzzed nonstop, Mia obviously. She'd been too distracted before exams, and her dream of Northgate slipped away. She ended up at the local state university. For years apart might finally give her time to understand what we were, or weren't. As for me, I was excited, really excited. Even the traffic couldn't kill my mood. My dad dropped us at the train station, told me to study hard, told me to take care of Chloe. I promised him I would. Then, seeing the faint stoop in his shoulders, I pulled him into a hug. Don't worry, Dad. I'm grown up now. I can take care of myself. You and Mom just take care of each other at home. As the train pulled away, he stood on the platform waving, and a lump formed in my throat. After a long trip, Chloe and I arrived at Northgate. She guided me through registration and helped me settle into my dorm, even made my bed. My roommates stared, impressed, whispering about how beautiful and thoughtful my girlfriend was. I didn't correct them. Honestly, a small part of me was thrilled. After that, I helped Chloe move into her dorm, dragging her heavy suitcase up 5 flights of stairs. She wiped the sweat off my forehead with a tissue. When her roommates arrived, they started teasing her immediately. She ended up agreeing to treat them to dinner, and that's how I found myself eating with 4 senior girls. From then on, Chloe and I fell into a routine. Meals together, evening walks, quiet moments. Rumors spread that we were a couple. I found out when a friend saw us and started teasing me. I was about to explain, but Chloe slipped her arm through mine. That ended the conversation instantly. Her cheeks were slightly flushed. A few guys keep bothering me. I was hoping you could be my shield, she said softly. Well, if I'm your shield, I'll never get a girlfriend, I joked. Maybe you should just be my girlfriend for real, Chloe. She looked at me for a long time. Then, so quietly I almost missed it, she whispered. Okay. I stopped walking, stunned. I grew up with you too, she said, meeting my eyes. Doesn't that make us childhood sweethearts too? Why can't I like you? I can't believe it, I stammered. Chloe, you're so beautiful and smart. Why would you like me? Chloe was objectively more beautiful than Mia. Better figure, calmer energy. She was always the gentler one, always the one who gave in, always the one who looked after both Mia and me. Leo, you're great too, she said quickly. You're tall, handsome, and you got into Northgate, same as me. Your grades are just as good as mine. She rushed to list every good thing she saw in me, not letting me tear myself down. My chest tightened with emotion. I pulled her into a hug, something that had always felt natural with her. Thank you for liking me, Chloe. And just like that, no dramatic confessions, no showy gestures. We were together. We just hadn't told our families yet. A couple of months later, Chloe started an internship. To stay close, she found a company near campus. She tried commuting from the dorm, but late nights made it exhausting. To make things easier, she decided to rent an apartment. I was completely supportive. Living off campus meant more freedom for us. Then Chloe bit her lip, a little nervous. "Do you want to move in with me?" Move in together. The thought completely consumed me. My mind overflowed with images of living with Chloe, sharing meals, waking up beside her, building a life under the same roof. I agreed almost instantly. My reaction was so goofy and excited that she burst into laughter. After visiting several places, we finally found a small 60-square-meter apartment, just big enough for the two of us. We each bought little things we liked, small decorations to make the place feel like ours. When I looked around that cozy space we created, it felt unreal. I'm really living with Chloe. The reality didn't fully hit me until she stepped out of the bathroom after a shower, cheeks flushed, telling me shyly that it was my turn. I practically sprinted into the bathroom, heart racing. From that day on, we lived like a married couple. She would rush home early to cook for me, and I'd surprise her with little gifts. Because we already understood each other so well, we never fought. We were simply incredibly compatible. Sometimes I'd come home early and cook all her favorite dishes, setting the table with a bouquet of flowers so she'd see it the moment she walked in. Other times, she'd surprise me with a jersey from my favorite team or a new action figure. Happy times passed quickly. Before we knew it, winter break had arrived. After one last dinner in our apartment, we went through our little checklist, closing the windows, turning off the water, unplugging everything. We stood in the doorway for a long, quiet moment, taking one last look at our little home before stepping outside, hand in hand. Our happy beginning would be paused for a whole month. On the train home, she was in my arms, and it felt like we had a million things left unsaid. My parents kept texting, asking when we'd arrive. I replied patiently each time. Just before we pulled into the station, I told Chloe I planned to tell her parents about us. For the first time, she hesitated. "What about my sister?" she asked. "What about her?" "There's nothing between us," I said. "Who cares what she thinks?" She finally nodded, but asked me to let her be the one to tell them. When we stepped out of the station, both sets of parents were waiting. Mia wasn't there. Her break didn't start until that afternoon. I sat in the back of my parents' car. My mom held my hand, looking me over, saying I looked thinner and a little darker after 6 months away. I laughed and flexed my arm, telling her freshman boot camp had made me leaner, not weaker. My parents laughed, just happy to have me home. We went straight to Mia's university to pick her up. She came running out, thrilled to see us. I hadn't initiated contact with her once in 6 months. Everything, every message, had been from her. I told her before that we could only be friends, but she never listened. After that, I only answered some of her texts, ignoring anything that crossed the line. At the restaurant, our families gathered for dinner. Chloe and I sat together, but Mia insisted on squeezing in beside me. When she sat, she saw our intertwined hands under the table. The color drained from her face. At one point, Mia's mom mentioned that Chloe would be graduating soon and needed to start thinking about finding a boyfriend. Chloe stood up, lifted our joined hands, and said clearly, "Leo and I are together." Both families froze. Then suddenly, everyone laughed with joy. My dad and Chloe's father immediately raised their glasses. "Looks like we're going to be family," her dad boomed. I watched Leo grow up. I couldn't ask for a better son-in-law. "And Chloe is such a sweet girl," my dad said. "I'd be thrilled to have her as a daughter-in-law." The two of them started exchanging compliments, drinking more and more, getting drunker by the minute. Soon they were talking about engagement parties, wedding gifts, and how many kids we should have. "The wedding gift will be generous. We love Chloe. She deserves the best," my dad declared. "I'll handle the engagement party. Don't spend a dime. I only have 2 daughters. Everything I own will be theirs one day," her dad slurred lovingly. Our moms were just as delighted, whispering to each other while stealing happy glances at Chloe and me. But Mia didn't smile once. She sat pale, barely touching her food. Later that night, the shouting began. Mia and Chloe were having their first real fight, so loud we could hear it through the walls. When I knocked and went inside, Chloe, normally so gentle, was standing her ground like a fierce mother hen. "Leo loves me. He asked me out. How could you steal him from me?" Mia screamed. "So what if he asked you out?" "You didn't say yes," Chloe fired back. "What's wrong with me being with him now?" Hearing this, their mom gave me a complicated look. I nodded apologetically and walked over to Chloe, taking her hand. "Mia," I said, voice steady, "the only reason I asked you out was because you told me to. I didn't expect anything because I knew you were going to choose Josh. You rejected me. Why are you making a scene now?" My words deflated her completely. I just wanted to," she stammered, "when all those people were laughing at me." I cut her off. "You chose to stay there and let it happen. Did you ever think about how I felt? And after that, we both saw you with Josh. Was he forcing you? Did he force you to meet his sister as his girlfriend? Have you even broken up with him yet?" My questions left her pale and speechless. She managed only to tearfully claim she had just been pretending, and they were never really together. "Mia, we've known each other our whole lives," I said quietly. "I know exactly what you were thinking. If you had feelings for someone else, you should have let me go." She had no response. That night, Chloe came home with me. It was her official introduction to my parents as my girlfriend. She ignored Mia for the rest of the break, and I stayed by Chloe's side the whole time. Just before we were set to return to school, Mia showed up at the door. Our parents were hosting our engagement party the next day, and we'd be leaving the following morning. "What is it, Al?" Chloe asked. We followed her outside. Waiting there were Josh and his sister. "He only asked me to pretend to be his girlfriend," Mia said, eyes flicking between us and them. "He said you were watching, Leo, and that he'd be humiliated if I said no. That's why I did it." Josh's sister looked shocked, staring at her brother. "Mia, you spent all your time with me," Josh argued. "You agreed to be my girlfriend. Now you're backing out? And you," he glared at me, "you forced her to do this, didn't you?" "It has nothing to do with him." "It was my fault," Mia cried, stepping in front of me. I held up my hand, Chloe's fingers laced with mine. Our engagement rings glinted in the sunlight. "Chloe and I are getting engaged tomorrow," I said calmly. "Your business is your own." Josh went silent. His sister grabbed his arm. "You led my brother on," she snapped at Mia. "Now you're walking away? You owe us an apology." Mia hung her head, mumbling a quiet apology. Later that evening, Chloe told me Josh's sister called Mia and erupted at her for hurting her brother. The next day, our engagement party was simple, warm, and full of family. Afterward, Chloe pulled me aside, worried about Mia, who had been withdrawn all day. We went to speak with Josh's sister, explaining everything, my history with Mia, how Josh inserted himself in the middle, and how Chloe and I got together. She apologized sincerely, admitting her brother was at fault. I smiled and walked away with Chloe's hand in mine, only to realize Mia had been right behind us. Her expression was devastated. "Can we talk?" she asked. I shook my head gently. "Mia, you know me. We can't go back. And besides," I looked at Chloe, "I'm incredibly happy with her." I know," she whispered. She followed us home in a daze and didn't even say goodbye when Chloe and I left for the airport. 3 years later, the day after my college graduation, Chloe and I got married. Mia was my maid of honor, giving us a heartfelt blessing. It was a huge, beautiful wedding. Chloe walked down the aisle radiant, and I took her hand, promising to make her happy for the rest of my life. I slid the ring onto her finger, pulled her close, and kissed her deeply. In the audience, Mia cried uncontrollably as her mother tried to comfort her. After the wedding, Chloe and I moved into our new home. Mia, showing no interest in dating, moved into the house next door. When our son was born, Mia was always there. She helped with the baby and with the housework. And even though her help was a blessing, we couldn't shake the worry that she was putting her own life on pause because of us. Chloe gently tried talking to her about finding a boyfriend and settling down someday, but Mia would just smile, shake her head, and go right back to cooing at our son, with a look of pure, overflowing joy on her face. Our jobs were local, And even though Mia's salary wasn't high, her hours were flexible. Having her around saved us so much time and energy that, eventually, we stopped trying to convince her to focus on herself. It felt like she had quietly slipped into our family routine. One Saturday night, Chloe and I came home from a much-needed date night. The moment we opened the door, we heard voices coming from the living room. A soft, gentle voice said, "Mama, sweetie, can you say mama?" And then our son repeated it. "Mama." Chloe and I froze in the doorway. We just stood there, staring at Mia, who was holding our son and smiling so brightly it lit up the entire room. We looked at each other, completely at a loss for words.